Hello, dear researchers. Welcome back for the last part of this introduction to the map. After we have explored an overview of the 8 circuits and how this map operates also as a compass, I want to now introduce you to the concept of balance that we can explore with this awesome map and compass. So take a deep breath and brace yourselves. So first of all, I want to introduce you to the concept of shocks and anchors. This is a development to the model that was given by Antero Alli that does not show up in the version of Leary or Robert Anton Wilson. Antero Alli introduced the notion that the upper circuits 5 to 8 deliver some kind of metaphysic shocks to or base of the system represented by circuit 1 to 4. And circuit 1 to 4 acts as anchors for this kinds of metaphysical or altered states experiences. Now, those metaphysical shocks, they can be delivered by an induced altered state, or they can be also delivered by life itself through different means. And the anchors in our nervous systems are, they depend on the integration and development of each circuit. So the more we have worked and developed and integrated the workings of the circuits in the lower part of the system, circuit 1 to 4, the better we can absorb the metaphysical shocks delivered by circuit 8 to 5 or 5 to 8. One could say that circuits 5 to 8 metaphysical shocks could be like initiatory experiences, and usually all kinds of initiatory paths into occultism or magic will also craft ritual experiences or initiation for the candidates to be delivered some of the shocks of the different circuits in order to induce a little bit of opening in their system, circuitry 1 to 4, so that the system can expand, adapt, and become creative in the response to the metaphysical shocks and thus trigger systemic evolution. We can look at this also from the perspective of homeostasis, in the sense of, and this has to do again with the part of order and disorder in the system. So when our system is functioning on our survival mechanisms or survival programming that has developed through our journey of personal development, it reaches some form of homeostasis, some form of balance in our system, represented by a very well equally balanced and on the chaos star. But when we introduce disorder or some form of entropy or metaphysical shocks, the system goes into a state of chaos, into a state of maybe dysregulation, and a state of opening out of balance. And then through the process of integration of these experiences, reaches a new form of homeostasis. After this kinds of experiences, there's never a going back completely to the way the system was configured or the previous balance held before. Once you introduce a little bit of disorder, chaotic disorder, creative or destructive, the system will need to find a new balance. Deep breath. So now let us take a closer look at the shocks and anchor things. I love that as well the representation on the chaos star, in the sense because it allows us to look at the direct correspondence of the circuits in the lower to the circuits of the higher circuit. So we have a correspondence between the red circuit 1 here and the blue circuit 5, in the sense that the more safety we can create in our body, the better we can regulate our body into safety, the easier for us to access and also absorb and integrate experiences of ecstasy. If we're not feeling safe in our body, it is not going to be possible to access experiences of ecstasy. And if we access experiences of ecstasy that in their power are more overwhelming than the safety we have created in our body, we will dysregulate our circuit 1 and end back in a state of an anxious monkey. So if you're moving through ecstatic spaces or temple spaces, pleasure dense, it is very, very important that you learn to regulate your body, your system back into safety and create that safety in your system first before you start entering into the pleasurable experiences that will lead to ecstasy. The second part of the side of the balance is the correlation between the yellow circuit 2 of emotional territorial circuit and a circuit 6 here in purple, where circuit 6 delivers a shock of uncertainty. Because once we enter circuit 6 experiences, reality becomes very relative, right? We start switching around of reality tunnels, creating change in our system. So one reality experience can't be equally interesting as a different reality tunnel experience. And we kind of like lose what is important to us, and things become very relative. This is also the state of consciousness, perhaps you have experienced it on acid, where you kind of like see multiple possibilities as things might unfold. Time ceases to be linear. It seems to be like a question of choice in which timeline you find yourself in, and thus things start getting more uncertain. This is a shock for our emotional territorial circuit, who actually really craves certainty and control over the territory. And the more uncertainty we experience, the more the emotional circuit system reacts to that as well. How do we absorb this shock the best? When we develop our circuit 2 integration and reach some emotional sovereignty, which means that we're able to regulate our emotions, we can create a stable sense of self-worth, and we really actually know what we want and where we're going to, what is important to us, and we can manage our emotional supply. So usually you can't see, or one way to see how this will unfold is, for example, in the response to the pandemic, which is a situation with a high levels of uncertainty. Things are not working anymore as we're used to this. Things are going out of control. And then our emotional systems react in usually one or two imprinted ways. For those who have more a submissive imprint in their emotional circuit too, they will respond to the threat of uncertainty by reaching out to figures of authority. Please, daddy state, make it safe again, make it back into control, get control over the situation. And everybody who's not cooperating with the efforts of the state to regain control over the situation can be seen as a threat to this emotional system, and thus all the blaming and shaming going around. The other imprinted systems that have more rebellious, anti-authoritarian imprint in their emotional system will react to the measures of control by daddy government with rebellion. Fuck no, I won't do what you tell me. But this doesn't solve the feeling of complete uncertainty in the circuit. So they need a C3 different narrative. For example, the narrative of a bad conspiracy, which puts back control in the hands of a few that are doing the bad things, and it allows circuit 2 to go into a state of like, I can't regain some agency over my life if I fight the fight against these evil forces, thus regaining some sense of self-control. Deep breath. The balance between circuit 3 and circuit 7 is also a very interesting one. If we take the circuit 7 experiences, or the metaphysic shock coming from this realm of experiences, the shock of unity, the shock of being connecting to everything all at once, everything everywhere all at once, everything one. And this is something our rational minds usually don't cope very well with, because our rational minds function in the realm of duality and separation in order to make categories. This is this and this is not that. So The mind likes to make distinctions and likes to keep things separate so it can put labels on it and make categories and make maps and make taxonomies and all the rest of the sense-making equipment. So usually the mind cannot include itself in these experiences of unity, and this is where we start going a little crazy. Another interesting aspect of this balance is, for example, that the part of the mythopoetic language. So we go into this kind of mystical experiences. And if we come back making some kind of sense in our circuitry, meaning that we can't tell a good story of what we experienced and what this experience means, and others that hear our story kind of like resonate with the story and go along with it, well, then you have somebody that has just founded a religion or became a guru. If you have someone that comes back from these experiences and is not making any sense, usually in the West we'll do like, okay, this person is like cuckoo, cuckoo, or some form of psychotic. Let's give them antipsychotic medications and lock them up because they're not making any sense. And they're not making any sense as a threat to our sense-making mechanisms or our need for rationality and sanity. So usually in other cultures, people, more shamanic cultures, people that come back from the States and don't make sense get brought to the shaman for proper introduction, how to navigate those spaces and make sense of them. Deep breath. And the last part of the balance is then between circuit 8 and circuit 4. So circuit 8 experiences, or the shock delivered by circuit 8, is the shock of impermanence, the shock of death, the shock of things end and things die. Existence ceases to be part of the experience. And this can be quite a shock to absorb. And the better we can absorb this kind of shock is when we're anchored in community, in the sense of that we know who we are, we know who our friends are, and all this kind of like impermanent shocks that can be losses. It can be a brush with death as well, but it can also be the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of something significant to us where our ego identity is attached to. And we experience grief as a response to this loss. And usually in our Western society, we leave grievers alone, which takes a lot more time to recuperate from losses and integrate the losses than if we would make space in community to actually feel these losses and process these losses. And it's an important also part of the balance, in the sense of like, if we're making this kind of like near death experiences or out of body experiences, DMT experiences, into out of their non-local experiences, disconnected from our bodies and our identities, if we're not very well anchored in community and into a sense of like or purpose for existing in this on this planet, on the social realm, we might experience as well a sense of alienation, a sense of being an alien on this planet, of not belonging on this planet. And you remember circuit 4 has to do with the need to of belonging as well. So if we can't meet the need of belonging, connection to the social realm, to like an identity we have at least played or are connected to, we can't come back from these experiences without falling into a sense of a thirst for death or a thirst to exit this game world. Deep breath. So this is a few aspects of exploring the axis of balance between the lower and the higher circuits. Of course, also as in the representation of the chaos star suggests, all the circuits talk to each other. The brain is a hyper-connected thing, and also these altered states of experiences usually support higher connectivity in the brain. So none of this is hierarchic. The balance has to do with the opposite side of the chaos star circuit, but the circuits also find balance within each other, and depending on how well integrated each circuit is and well developed. So perfectly balanced system with one where all the circuits are equally developed and function as anchors to the different metaphysical shocks that are delivered to us by life, by ritual, or by the use of psychedelic substances. Deep breath. Now, I want to end this introductory presentations with the notion of chaos as an evolutionary agent. And this is where my mission comes in as well, to be a coach that supports unconventional individuals to embrace states of chaos as opportunity of personal evolution. And this has to do with what we talked about just in the previous slide about homeostasis and how chaotic states tamper with the homeostasis, thus also forcing the system to realign. So I leave you with this quote of Antero Alli. Implementing inside shocks can encourage more ego flexibility to help us navigate the influx of greater forces catalyzed by outside shocks. So outside shocks are all the kind of shocks that come either through initiatory experiences or shocks that life presents us, or also like the external addition of psychedelic substances. And inside shocks could be like shocks you produce yourself to challenge your system a little bit, which is with what we will be experimenting. So most of the experiments and quest items in the quest scrolls will produce some sort of like little inside shocks that encourage more ego flexibility. And the more flexible your ego becomes, the easier it is to navigate those ecstatic currents, those altered states, those states of gnosis. Any state that triggers experience of chaos tends to get our full attention. Yes, because once we're thrown into a state of chaos, it's like our nervous system goes like, I don't have any survival strategy for this. So it goes out of the usual default mode network of survival strategy and increases the hyperconnectivity of the brain to find new and novel solutions to survive that chaotic state. So this is the window of opportunity where we can then like get the full attention of the system and find new strategies. Continue on the quote. Chaos acts as an evolutionary trigger that dilates the perception to the naturally incomprehensible complexity, the chaos of the brain itself. So it dilates the connectivity, the perception of the chaotic nature of the brain itself. Chaos accelerates perception of uncertainty by temporarily breaking down mental fixation and certitudes, the default mode network. All of the states offer fluid opportunities for shifting into higher levels of functioning. So, right? You have a chaotic state, the brain goes like, oh, hyperconnection, neuroplasticity, and bringing down, calling down the default mode network of standard operation. And then you have opportunity to make new connections. You have the opportunity to create new neural pathways for problem solving in your life. So it's not the shock that is important, but how we respond to that shock that dictates what's happened next. And that's the thing. It's about increasing the response ability to the shocks of life. This is what in other lingo would be called resilience. But what I want to leave with you as a message is we don't need to fear the states of chaos and confusion. We can embrace them and like ride the storm, right? Find a way to ride the wave, and then find new balance in the system and the trust that through this chaotic experience, our brain will look for new ways of dealing with life, and we can actually make some levels up. Deep breath and much fun surfing the waves of chaos. Good night and good fight.